right, here we are, Data Protection Breakfast Club, our third episode. I'm dressed up. I look like Don Johnson.
Dude, you're looking good.
Julia says
You're looking good.
Our guest today is Julia Schulman, who's the GC and Chief Privacy Officer of a company called Triple Lift in New York City. Pedro and I have known her for many years. We met when she was at AppNexus, which is one of the largest ad tech exits, over $1 billion to AT&T. Julia was their head of privacy and commercial legal, and she's just really interesting, really thoughtful on these issues, and really fun person to talk to. So I'm psyched about it.
She's fucking awesome. And you know, I'll say this: we've known her a long time. I've known her a good while. I've negotiated against her. In prior, both of us were in prior roles. I gotta say, like, she could be, and I know I say that a lot of people are smart, but she could be the deepest thinker about privacy and ad tech that I know. I mean, she knows issues in and out, and especially about like the European perspective. Like, even though she's an American and lives in the States, her is broad, but it's deep, man. She knows a lot. She's smart.
She did two things to facilitate that. One is she actually spent a lot of time in Europe, going to Mexico and meeting when AppNexus on the publisher side had really large publisher clients. She would actually go meet with clients, and that's uncommon for a lawyer. So she went and totally understood deeply the perspective of the European client. And then the other thing she did, which only augments that, is how deep she is technically. And I would say she's actually the most technical GC maybe I've ever come across in terms of understanding the technology.
I totally agree with her.
When she talks, and I'm like, "Are you an engineer?" So it's a very, very, very cutting edge way to practice tech law.
Yeah, no, she's sharp, man. And as a GC, like, that technical knowledge, and I mean, she's just gonna rock it, man. I know she's been at her role for a little bit now, but she's gonna rock it. That company, her company's lucky to have her, and I'm super jealous. She's a boss. She's a boss. I've got a question for you, Andy, before we jump over to her. The narco look you got going, I know we're gonna I really like it, man. You look like you're like always smiles and you're this jolly guy, but I'm feeling a little danger, man.
This is my new look.
I think you should rock it. I know
you like to call me the Godfather. I'm turning a new leaf here, and this is a Miami Vice style GC persona that I'm going to take on now.
I like it, man.
Yeah, at Alice too.
I like it. That's good. The whole company's going to take on this. Okay, good. Well, you'll all need white Ferraris. This is very important, okay? Like, everyone needs white Ferraris. And look, man, if you guys get me on the like costume and production bandwagon, all hell's going to break loose back here. So I'm trying to like just hold off as long as I can until I get the itch, because things are going to get real interesting if I start putting on clothes. It's going to get weird.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to talking with Julia, and
let's get her on here.
Yep. All right, let me get the recording off. Here we are. We're here with Julia Schulman, the GC of Triple Lift and Chief Privacy Officer,
AKA Privacy Lisa Turtle. It's looking good.
Exactly what I'm going for.
We have a lot to talk about with Julia. Julia's one of our really good friends. And so let's start with, I called this episode Summer Rental. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie. I haven't seen it in a long time, but it got me in the mood because of all the photos that Julia posts of herself with her toes in the sand working, which I'm always so jealous of. So my first question is, are you a member of Bravo's Summer House cast in the Hamptons?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was my idea, but I decided to turn it over to someone else because I just really prefer to work in ad tech instead.
Yeah. Understood.
Yeah, you gave up that lifestyle for some ad tech, okay?
Yeah.
Let's start with how we met. So I'll say how Julia and I met, and then you guys can. Julia came up to me and introduced herself after a panel in DC, because she was working with AppNexus and I was working with DataZoo, and I just right away was like, "So are you going public?" I'm sure you were horrified. You were like, we're pretty busy.
I'm trying. Yeah, I can't even remember. Was it a no slides panel or I can't?
Might have been early for that. I don't know. I don't remember. But luckily you forgave me for that blunt instrument of an introduction, and we got to be friends. What about how did you?
Yeah, and nothing's ever changed. Like I regularly get prying texts from Andy.
Same. What about you two?
Julia, I don't remember how we met. I don't know
either. I'm sure it was like
the streets.
It was either,
streets.
yeah, it was we were like wandering around and I saw him and I was like, God, he looks like he works in ad tech. Like I see that burning light in his eyes.
That's right.
It might have been, it was either at a conference or it was actually like potentially in a negotiation. Like Oracle might have been being annoying to deal with, shocker. And someone might have said, you should reach out to Pedro to discuss.
Yeah. I feel like that might have been it. It was either that or on some crime spree that you were on that I was trying to stop. But I don't remember how we met exactly. I do remember those negotiations though, and they carried on for a long time. But I don't know. But I just feel like that was like 7 or 8 years ago. I feel like we've known each other a long time. That is definitely the truth. I didn't know you had this like alter ego of Lisa Turtle, but it's pretty cool. And I've got 2 questions for both of you because you're both wearing jackets, right? Like, Andy, where the hell did you get this jacket? And then, Julia, how many jackets and shirts are you wearing? Like, these are important questions.
I'll let the guests.
Please proceed.
I mean,
Julia, how many fucking jackets are you wearing? Like, what's going on?
When you wear a pop collar, you have to wear at least 3, right?
Like,
it's just there's just a couple down there. Going for a medley.
Looking good.
I expect you to be very warm by the end of this conversation.
Yeah. She's gonna be sweating, and then Andy, I can see the shoulder pads in those things, man. Just putting that out there. So
I got mine at Marshall. No.
But that's your negotiation jacket, right? Like when you were an associate, that was definitely what you wore.
This is so I worked for a law firm, and I worked for a partner that taught me everything that I didn't want to be in an attorney. So it was a really valuable experience, and he made it clear that I needed to wear a suit every day, and he did not wear a suit every day. He
helpful. Thank you.
Wanted me to be wearing a suit every day. So I have a fantastic collection of suits and ties that I never wear. I got ties for every holiday. I have an amazing closet. I'm looking at it, full of stuff that I rarely get to break out. And this is one. Sadly, it's a seersucker jacket that I really do like, but I never wear it now.
You should just start wearing a jacket and tie every day.
Exactly.
I think I'd fit in.
And I feel like you should be smoking. I feel like this isn't right without you smoking right now. Just a big cigar.
Well, on that note, let's talk to Julia a little bit. All right, we're gonna go back. Go back a little bit. Go back to law school, and we could go back before that, but go back to law school. And I guess my question is, did you have any sense that you?
How'd you feel about ad tech when you were a baby? No, we're gonna start with you as a baby.
I just want to know if you thought about going in-house as a GC back then. Did you think about it? Were you aware of it?
So, believe it or not, I thought I wanted to be a tax attorney in law school. I know. I mean,
wow.
Like little do you know how much of a nerd I actually am. So I took like all the tax classes. It was like me and some accounting guy who came in and taught like 4 of us all the nuances of the tax code. And I thought I was going to do that at a law firm and like do all this cool deal structuring behind the scenes.
Oh my God. She got smart.
Yes. Yeah. But that was definitely, now is my reaction. And within 3 months of starting at a law firm and doing it, I was like, absolutely not.
Oh, so you went to Latham and Watkins, large global law firm, and you started doing that. And it only took how many? 3 months for you to change?
Oh, definitely. I mean, because it's someone between the finance team and the corporate team, they would send me the same document over and over and ask me to mark up the 4 reps and warranties and covenants associated with tax. And that was it. And I was like, what? Like, did I not take this job to help companies like and understand what they're trying to do and achieve, like this is just marking up the same provision over and over and over.
So how were you able to make the transition to like mergers and acquisitions in the full deal?
Yeah, I'm really fortunate at Latham. We were unassigned. And so I was able to just wander around and introduce myself to various partners and associates that were working on deals and jumped in and actually got to work on a lot of cool stuff.
Was there a lot of pressure there?
There was, yeah. I mean, I think we all started our careers sort of around the same time. And so there was already a lot of pressure when I was first starting out working on these deals. And then the, financial crisis hit in '07. And so Latham actually laid off a lot of associates. And on many deals I was working on, the mid to senior level associate was gone. And all of a sudden it was me, a second year associate, literally running deals with senior partners who would send me to negotiations by myself and tell me to handle marking up like documents.
Cheap labor, man.
Do you look back on that as formative, or like, was it good, or was it just insane?
It was, I mean, it was insane at the time, right? But it was my initial like throw you in the deep end, learn how to like fake it till you make it, figure out how to run around and find the right people to help you understand and get answers on things. And that was just on the work side. I think on the client management side, I had to be the one to go into negotiations and like keep the room in order and have conversations and chit chat with clients, take them to dinner, figure out how to keep, random guys from the Midwest, Texas, London, New York City, New Jersey happy and wanting to use us, which was just insane at the time.
It's funny you said fake it till you make it. Like, I feel like that's the law firm model even now. Like, we spend, I'm sure all of us have outside counsel budgets that we are careful about how we spend, but half the time I feel like the firms are learning as they go along. Do you guys get that? Do you get that sense, Julia, like in your work now as a GC? And Andy, I'm interested to hear what you think about the same thing.
Yeah, so my philosophy is I'm actually happy to have associates working on deals who are learning, but I'm not happy to pay for them. So I've had a couple of things going on, whether it's corporate, litigation, you name it, where there's some great, smart associates and I bring them along and I'm happy to have them working on stuff, but I'm not going to pay full price for them.
My take on this is that if the firm that I'm working with is open with me and they say, look, this is an issue, it's new, we're not really familiar with it, we're going to dig in on it and we'll get back to you. I've seen that be most successful, right? And they tell me we've had to tap some outside resources ourselves and get smart on it. The question is, once they get smart on it, how are they? And from what I've seen, the firms that I've worked with, the ones that dig in, figure it out quickly, understand and drive right to the point are the ones that, you keep working with. And so I have no problem with them digging in and learning stuff, especially if they're open about it. It's when they're not that makes it very difficult. Like, oh, we got this. And then they come back later, some issue in another country or something where they're like, we've got some. If you don't have the answer, just tell me, because I can easily find the answer somewhere else. I don't want to spin wheels. None of us on this call have time to waste. That's the biggest thing. The money is one piece of the puzzle. Time is the biggest. I mean, we're all, even in startup land or bigger companies that I've been with, everyone is still moving quickly, and you need to move at a reasonably fast pace.
That's such a good point.
That's interesting.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Pedro.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think in all of our spaces too, firms are just seeing the value of spinning up practices that focus on technology in the first place, and then also can help on like day-to-day commercial and privacy matters versus like big corporate deals or diligence. And I find, they're actually really leaning on us to help them learn like about our technology and learn about how the industry applies the law and various self-regulatory codes, you name it, to our practices. And so we're actually valuable resources for them And I'm okay with that sometimes when we need external resourcing and extra bandwidth, but I'm not cool with it when, you know, they, to your point, Andy, pretend they're experts, and then you end up on the other side of them on a deal, or, you know, working on a matter, and they're trying to pretend like they know it as well as you do.
What about you,
Yeah,
Paul?
it's interesting. I'm not interested in paying anybody for anybody to learn anything. Like, that's just not. I know that that disrupts the law firm model, right, a little bit. But I've got to decide what to spend my outside counsel budget on. Teaching associates is not part of it, and so that's a problem with the law firm model, not with my budget. You get what I mean? Like, they've worked in this learning time and expect clients to pay. I just can't afford it. I don't want to pay it.
I don't
And
think all
so
of
there are
them,
some very,
I don't think all of them
yeah, sorry.
expect you to pay. I mean, I think so. So the as I was sort of saying a little bit before, like the money to me is another, like that's almost a separate bucket, the payment, because um, the good relationships I have are the ones where the bills come through and there's a lot that I'm not seeing already, because they already know
Yeah.
I'm not going to send a bill that's ludicrous, right? And it doesn't work for them either. They're not going to send, it's not helpful for them to send a crazy bill. And in those situations when that has happened, I do have to go back and say, this bill is crazy. And then, and then
Yeah.
luckily we're in a position where they want to make it work, and they will say, okay, well, let's figure out what the bill should be. And so rarely has it been a situation where they stick hard on what the bill, what a crazy bill is. And so I think, you know, luckily part of the puzzle is just finding the people that will understand that what you're comfortable with. And ultimately it's the total bill at the end of the day. It's not I don't spend my time looking through every single billable moment in the bill.
Yeah, and it's also
Yeah,
just
I
about
think,
the
but
relationship
that,
and trust.
exactly. Like, I totally agree with you. Like, the firms I work with understand where I'm coming from now, right? After years and years of working together with me, I'm not going to get some funny bill for some associate, 15 hours researching, CPRA, right? Like, that's not gonna work for me. But they know that already. But when you work with newer firms, or you work on issues that maybe you don't have the depth on, I think you do have to kind of look at those bills at first and make sure that, like, where you have an understanding of what value I'm willing to pay for. And, training time, just not willing to do it. And to your point about time, Andy, I think it's a good one. Like, God, nothing is better than when you trust your outside counsel. Like, I have two really go-to firms that I work with on most of my stuff, and I've been working with them a long time. And I rarely go and like parse out bills, because I know that they're not going to do, these, like, not that anybody's trying to deceive or mislead, but there's not going to be any stacked bills in there, because, we've got 10 years now of working together, and I understand how that works. But super interesting stuff. You guys are big hotshot GCs. I'm just a guy down here in the trenches, but
In one of the biggest
I like to hear your
Yeah.
perspective.
but okay.
Probably one of the biggest users of legal resources. So we lean on you guys to do a lot of the training of these law firms so that we get good services out of them.
Well, so Julia, how
Yeah, I
big was
get it.
AppNexus when you joined?
So AppNexus was, goodness, it was 600, and it went up to about 1,200 at one point when I was there. So it grew about 50%.
What was the difference culturally from the beginning to the end?
I came in, many of the old schoolers, I think we all reference probably 3 to 4 different periods at the company. And I came in right at the outset of the third inning of the company. And so I do think I missed out on the first 2 very initial growth phases and changes of the guard. But the third inning and the fourth inning, I would say the third inning, we were really maturing processes, and then also maturing as a company with a mission, and a company with not only a corporate mission, but also a cultural and a philosophy just on the world, and wanting to kind of use the platform of the company for good, which made a huge impression on me coming from, law firm culture, and then, stopover at a British public company where there was just absolutely no concept
Was
of that.
that top down from the CEO?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was certainly Brian. It was also his executive team though. So my boss, Nithya Das, influenced a lot of the thinking at the company around corporate mission and giving back to the community. And it was just really, really powerful to see us use that platform. And of course, we're not, the size of the Salesforces and Oracles of the world, but even just, a well-known startup in New York City taking a stance on something like that was a huge thing.
Pedro, Salesforce is doing a lot of standing up right now, which is good.
There's a little bit of that going on. It's what's interesting to me, and I know we're all like ad tech, like burnout veterans and stuff, but like watching ad tech, like we always say, like, and you talked about this, Julia, but like in general, is ad tech as an industry maturing? Like, is maturing the right word? Like, what is happening in ad tech? I don't know that it's growth in the sense of like internal sophistication growth. I think it's just being forced to change. But is it really maturing? Is it really recognizing its role and responsibility in society impacts people, Julia? Interested to hear your thoughts on
that. Great question. I think it depends on the company and on the culture. And what I mean by that is I think it depends on certainly just the executive team and their philosophy on, their mission as a company. But I think it also depends on, honestly, like where they are from a financing perspective and whether they're really looking short term or whether they've got runway to look bigger picture. Because we can all pat big companies on the back and say, they're trying to really change things and they're looking out into the future, but most of the time they have the financial runway and the resourcing to do that, versus there's other companies that they're not sure they're going to be able to make payroll week over week, and so they can't take those long-term positions. And if you extrapolate that high level thinking into our world of privacy and legal, if you need to kind of make payroll the next week, you are certainly not going to be investing in a complete reset of your data pipeline or, bringing in a powerhouse lawyer or privacy expert to kind of reset your internal culture and how you use data. And I'm not saying that because I always agree with that, but I think that's what we're up against in our industry. And until the bigger companies kind of force change, regulators force change, and society as a whole truly demands it, I don't think we're going to see the change we want to see.
You know what? I understand that, and I agree with you in your sentiment. But what's interesting to me is the companies that have gotten big have been the ones that have taken the biggest risks, right? Like, I mean, in some regard, like, Google didn't become this behemoth in digital advertising by, conservatively climbing its way up to the top, and neither did Facebook. I'm not picking on those guys. They're just the biggest ones. And so like you get rewarded for being cavalier, and then once you're big enough, you can't be cavalier anymore because the scrutiny is too high, right? So it's just like, to me, it's like an interesting, it's not unique to ad tech, but it's kind of amplified in ad tech, right? Like the more you're willing, the higher risk tolerance, particularly monetization of data, the I don't want to say the more likely you are to unicorn out, but I think it definitely increases your chances depending on what your business model is to scale quickly, because you kind of sidestep some of these very kind of slow, methodical, like privacy by design or whatever data governance data governance issues that don't tend to matter to little companies, but then really matter to big companies. So it's like you get rewarded for being risky early, and then you have to change. And to your point, lots of companies don't even make it to that point. But in the meantime, consumers are the ones whose data is getting used to build all of these companies. It just doesn't strike me as fundamentally healthy. But
I think you have to have
obviously we all have careers.
You have to have investors. You have to have investors that have a long view and understand data, and are willing to have the data conversation. And I actually think that is the case much more now than it was 5 years ago. The board level conversations, the investor level conversations about data are happening, and I don't think 5 years ago they were happening nearly as much. It was much like you described: build, scale really quickly, build a product. Don't spend a whole lot of time on architecture, or because we all know this from hard experience of 2018, going into looking at systems that were built prior to that, not built for any sort of deletion or data access, right? So it's the impact of that is being felt now, and you do have to have investors that will grow with you and understand that exactly what you just said. Like, the company is going to be focused in one area, less focused in others at certain stages of their life. And when you invest in the business, you have to trust. This hasn't changed, but they have to trust the management team. The management team is going to take it to the next level and do all the things that need to be done, dot the I's, cross the T's, and move things into maturity, which, is not an easy decision for them to make.
Yeah. And it's to your point, Pedro, also, like, Google and Facebook just grew up, in my opinion, in a time when companies just weren't thinking about these issues, but they got big enough, like they were able to scale without building in the back end access controlling and, more sophisticated data infrastructure. And now they're paying for it, sort of, but they're so big that I think, they kind of take those hits, and then they've got big teams now running around slowly re-architecting their system, slowly re-architecting their products. And then we can talk about the elephant in the room, but the real elephant in the room is they can afford those teams, they can re-architect their systems, and all of these regulations out there actually totally benefit them, because they don't have to share out that data. They've got armies of teams that have been doing R&D for years on, de-identified and anonymized data, and they control access to users and devices.
They were doing that research for fun before.
Yeah, well, it's for fun, and now they're like, oh, looky here, like differential privacy, and everything we all salivate over as privacy experts, and then it just benefits their products and services.
Do we exonerate? And again, it's not just Google and Facebook, it's a lot of companies, but and I've worked for some of these. I don't currently, but I have. Do we exonerate companies by saying, they weren't just, these issues weren't in play when people, I don't know if it was Eric Schmidt or Larry Page or one of these guys, but like say things like privacy is dead, and so they're clearly thinking about it, and some of the comments made at high levels at other companies, they've clearly thought about the privacy implications of their products and said, screw it, we don't care. Like, it's not real. Like, people's expectations need to change. And clearly they have not changed, because just 2 years ago we had GDPR. Now we've got CCPA, we've got LGPD, we've got CPRA, we've got all of this talk in Washington about a national privacy law. So people's expectations, in my opinion, are actually getting, are increasing as far as their privacy protections. You look at the next generations behind us, the Zers, and these kids, like, they're about ephemeral technology. They use Snapchat, they're on TikTok. You can get things and get rid of them. And they might not understand the back end of what's happening with their data, but on the front end, they're very much into, I don't want my stuff posted here forever. And especially not, because I think they understand things don't always age well. Question is, do we exonerate these companies by saying, well, they weren't considering these issues, when we sort of know they were, because there's enough public statements out there that they just said, yeah, we know, but we don't care?
I mean, I would say we certainly do not exonerate them. And I always stand on my high horse of where I come from on this. Is I think technology policy and strategy were divorced and run in silos for too long at many of the big tech companies, and certainly still at a lot of the smaller companies. And you end up with all of these awful designs and the challenges that we are all now tasked with trying to solve, because people weren't necessarily all sitting at a table thinking about what the best way was to build a product or bring it to market. Andy's smiling. I don't know. I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I think having been inside really large companies, it's been a while, but I have. It's challenging because the pace is so different, and when something comes down as an edict in some way, it just takes a long time for a sea change to happen in a really large company, and even a tech company like the ones we're talking about. You're talking about cultural change, and so that's actually way more difficult than product. So maybe they can deploy someone to build product and do stuff, but the size, scope, and scale of those organizations, all of the different data points, all the different places those things are and live. I mean, I don't know that we exonerate them or that this is meant to give them a pass or anything like that, but it's just difficult because they are what they are, and they are monolithic, but we do need them to act and behave in certain ways. And so my gut vibe is that they're coming around towards being more privacy focused and more privacy friendly, and certainly Google is. And whether Facebook will, I'm not sure. And we could talk about there's other companies in the mix here too, but I think unfortunately they're so big and so that they can wait for regulatory things to play out, and sometimes that's what happens.
And they can fight regulatory fights, right? Like they've got the resources to do so. I mean, we're watching it play out with CPRA in California, and the big players kind of chiming in ways that small companies really can't, right? And so, for example, if something's in Google's interest, even if it's not in the interest of the rest of the industry, Google speaking on it can sway the way decision made about a law, a regulation, an enforcement action. And that's incredible power. I'm not, you said something important, which I think is like, your gut tells you that there's a new renewed focus on privacy. Like the ethicist in me is like, okay, well, why is it happening? Or the philosopher in me, I'd say, like, why is it happening? And I definitely don't think it's altruism or some, new egalitarianism by big tech companies. I just think they realize we're going to lose money, and so we got to do this thing. What do you think about that?
I'll let Julie have the last word because we got to wrap soon.
Yeah, look, I think there's probably some believers at the company who altruistically or from an ethical perspective or fundamental rights perspective believe that privacy matters and that users actually have these rights. And then to your point, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are just saying, we're getting hammered, we're going to lose money. And also, by the way, we strategically benefit from investing in these things and making sure these regulations are drafted in the way that helps us. So win-win, like let's get the best and the brightest at the table and make this work.
That's it.
I've got one more question, and I know we're long, but I don't care. It's our podcast. We can do whatever we want. If you could, Julia, this is obviously for you. If you could have magically created the internet and a social media platform in the 1980s, which one would you want to exist and why? This is a hard question.
This is a very hard question.
This is a hard question.
Social media platforms. You know what? When I was doing my hair, so lovely and beautiful, I actually went to the hairdresser for this. We were discussing, role models of the 80s, and many of them were really good dancers, like Paula Abdul and Madonna and whatnot. So putting all privacy concerns aside and all geopolitical fighting aside, I think I'd go with TikTok. Because who doesn't want to do?
I think that's a good call. I mean, Instagram.
That's a good choice.
But
Yeah, but TikTok's the right choice. Wow, that's really good. Yeah, can you imagine like Madonna in like 87, 88 or 80 or even earlier with like a TikTok account? Oh my God.
Yep.
Like all that stuff that was banned on TV, you know, like,
Right.
you know, and it probably would have destroyed like the emergence of MTV. Like, I don't think MTV happens if we have TikTok in the 80s, the way it did, right? Like how important MTV became, like, no way. Artists would just have a different platform.
We
But
could
TikTok's a good
spend
choice. I really like that.
another hour on this.
Yeah, I really like that choice.
I'm thinking Milli Vanilli, but yes, we could spend an hour talking about the Running Man and all the good bands of the
Julia,
80s.
we will let you return to your real job. But
This was so fun. I would just hang
keep
out with
the
you guys
background-
for hours and hours.
background for your other Zoom calls today.
All day, every day.
You need to keep
All
those
right.
clothes on for the rest of the day. Make sure you.
I
join all your
I
Zoom
told
calls.
Andy I've got a legal 101 training, and this is it.
Okay,
this is
good.
what they're getting.
Background.
Good. Good.
All right, guys.
Thanks
I'm
for
so
hanging
psyched
out.
for your show.
Yeah,
Thanks for
sure.
having me.
Thanks.
Bye.